Welcome to Seymour from the Front Pew podcast, coming to you from the broadcast studio at Seymour First Baptist Church in Seymour, Tennessee, and featuring thoughts and discussions around loving God, loving others, making disciples, and living the life. I am your host, Tiger Brooks, and now on to the podcast. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Welcome back to Seymour from the Front Pew. Indeed, I am your host, Tiger Brooks. We thank you for listening today, and we hope that you truly will.
Listen.
Hey, I did that.
Nice, really good timing.
Not bad at all. But thank you again for coming in here and tuning in to this episode of the podcast. Today, we're going to hit upon a topic that we have mentioned a couple of different times in a couple of different episodes, but we're going to concentrate on it more today. We are coming to you from Seymour First Baptist Church, and we're going to talk about baptism. We're going to kind of open up the discussion. We may talk about when and where we were baptized, but we're going to get into some maybe doctrinal understandings of why we believe what we believe about baptism. And just see where that conversation takes us. I guess I'll start since I'm the oldest. I'll probably
in the year of our Lord, 1942.
Actually, it was 1987.
Hey, I was one.
I was two.
So
I was actually probably baptized before you then.
So you were what, 7?
I was
6.
Yeah, and I still struggle with my age, but we had just moved to Smyrna.
Okay.
That's a weird statement.
I struggle with my age.
With my age.
How old I was when I was baptized. And part of that is because like the baptismal records for my church have been destroyed. They weren't there. We don't have them. And I've never really gone back to look at pictures. We've got some pictures, but I'd have to go find them and flip them over and hope they wrote the date on them or whatever else. But yeah, I was around 7, 8 years old. We had moved to Smyrna, and so I was baptized as we joined the church in Smyrna. I always struggled with that because for a long time, my memory was being baptized because we were joining the church. And again, we talk about that because baptism with Baptist churches, baptism does link our membership and everything, and what is important for that. But I struggled because there was a period of time where I struggled. I could remember my baptism. I could remember coming down and joining by baptism, but I couldn't remember why I did baptism then. And all that went back to, I got saved at Vacation Bible School when we were in that transition. I got saved at Vacation Bible School at my aunt and uncle's church. That would have been between when we were moving from Kentucky to when we moved to Tennessee. We lived in Nashville for a short period of time. We took a little while to find a church like a lot of people do or whatever else. And so there was that period of time when I was saved in between there. But baptism came, it would have been around 84-ish, probably something like that. So
yeah, you got me.
Yeah. See, I got you.
You got me.
So,
I was 17.
yeah.
So for me, it was, I think, and we're not going to talk about our salvation experience, but I'm pretty sure I had placed my faith and trust in Christ at an earlier time than this, but I had not just quite grasped and put it all together because I was still trying to be a good person, all that kind of stuff. And understanding the lordship of Christ is what happened when I came forward at the end of a church service after we got back from the YAC, which is a story that I've shared. And then I'd say within 2 or 3 weeks of that time, I was baptized. But I was by then 17 years old, junior in high school, and had really understood everything at that point. At the point that I was baptized in Calvary Baptist Church in Kingsport, Tennessee, by John Coates. His son and I are still, both his son and daughter, and we are very good friends to this day. But his son and I are that was the person who my friend who continues to buy the season tickets that we've talked about in other episodes. But that's his son, and he and I are still really close. But that's my story, and so I did it as a teenager, very conscious of what it meant and why I was doing it, and I'm appreciative of that. Looking back on that, but who's next? And what do you guys?
Go ahead.
I was baptized. I got saved when I was 7. And then my dad, of course, was our music minister. So he baptized me. I want to say it was I have like the baptismal certificate. Yeah. So I think it says October or something of 1993 at St. Andrew's Baptist Church in Panama City, Florida. And yeah, I mean, it was I got saved during revival, preached by the chaplain for the Florida State Seminoles football team. And then my dad baptized me just a few weeks later. And yeah.
Very cool.
That's pretty.
Yeah. So I got saved at 7, but I wasn't baptized until I was 11. And I think for me, to be honest, I think to some degree that was, I struggled even after coming to faith in Christ. I knew that I was serious about that decision. But I had many times where, now that I look back on it, there was periods of time where I felt like I needed to rededicate my life because I felt like something was off. I felt like something was wrong. At the time, I felt like I had not been saved, and I kept needing to be saved. And it finally, I went forward one service to talk to my pastor and said, I need to get saved. And I had this probably the second or third time I had done that to him, and so he was like, "No, you don't." And that's when we went through, and this topic for another day, I'm sure, but he said, you don't lose your salvation. This isn't like, if you have made this decision, you've solidified this decision, then the Lord has saved you. And he said, but maybe we need to have this conversation. And we started walking down the road of baptism, and so I got baptized. That pastor was actually leaving. He was going to another church. He had walked with me for several years, and so he was who I considered my pastor, and so I wanted him to baptize me before he left, and his name was Pastor Bird, and I remember for my baptism, this was one of those crazy stories. I'll tell some of the kids before we go into baptism. They forgot to cut the heater on, and so we were in there's water in a river is cold, and yes, that's probably the coldest you can get. But when you forget to cut the baptism heater water on,
yes,
that is some cold water. And so my 11-year-old self gets in this water, and the pastor already been in it. And at the time, I didn't think he's in the waders, and so my mind is he's not cold at all, even though that's just not true. It's still cold in waders. But I remember getting in that water, and I was shivering. Mm-hmm. I was so cold, but it wasn't quite time to baptize me. So they started this prayer, and I'm standing in this water the whole time.
The longest prayer in captivity.
Man. And I don't know who, somebody was praying out in the sanctuary, and I look up at the pastor. I'm like, when are we done? I'm just sitting there shivering as it was so cold. And he just kept telling me to be quiet, and he got that done pretty quick, and we got out of there. But I distinctly remember that baptism experience because of the cold water. But so yeah, that's my baptism.
But again, to me, the thing with that period of time and with all those is the marker.
Yeah,
having a marker to go back to that we remember, that we have, that we that sets that time in place for us mentally or whatever else. And so I think it's important.
And I do think for me, I mentioned struggling for those years after coming to faith in Christ. Corey, you've said numerous times the first act of obedience of a believer's life is baptism. That's one of those first steps of obedience that we take after coming to faith in Christ. And for me, waiting from 7 to 11, I think there's a reason that I struggled with what am I doing? What my walk with Christ at the time, because I had not taken that important next step of obedience and baptism until later in life.
And I don't believe that someone can't live as a believer, but I think we are getting things out of order.
Yeah.
And if when we set those places in order, it makes things easier for us. It is. I think that's important. I think again, I think it's a picture that we see biblically. we talk about as Baptists that baptism is not salvation, that
Correct.
it's not a part of our salvation. We are saved by faith when we believe, and that happens the instant and the moment that we ask Jesus to forgive us, and that happens then. But it is an important step and marker for us to follow in obedience and to set that road of faith out before us. And so I think and that's the biblical example we see over and over. Acts is really that example for us of what the early church was doing and how life was being lived as believers, as disciples. And every time we see a move and a belief, we see baptism follow in a short period of time. Now, it's not always immediately,
Right.
as in, like, again, the eunuch we see, he's saved. He says, there's water. Why not?
Yeah.
Paul, we know it was a matter of days for him between his and when he made that decision and when he finally was baptized. But it was a matter of days, not a matter of years. And that's not the point and say,
No, yeah.
But it is something where we need to place importance there because it's an important spiritual marker for us to follow and to place and to kind of set that stake for us in our lives. So
I think that there's something that just for the listener who is, grown up in Southern Baptist Church and you've not understood or been familiar with other Christian denominational understandings of baptism, what we're talking about is different than than several other denominations, in that we're talking about three different things. Believers' baptism, which is what we practice, is going to be different than the baptism of denominations who believe that baptism is a requirement of salvation.
Right.
You are not saved until you are baptized fully. That's out there. But there's also the understanding that there are denominations who practice what is called pedobaptism, or baptism of infants or children who we would deem too young to have made a conscious decision to place their faith and trust in Jesus Christ. Infants being baptized, things like that. And we know that happens. And so we are saying that, what we believe as a Southern Baptist church is different than what other people believe. And that's why that when you come to a Southern Baptist church, you come to our church or another, like-minded Baptist church, some people come and they have to be baptized to be a member of our church because their previous experience did not qualify as a believer's baptism.
Yeah, and again, so in the life of the church, it can be a marker of identity. That I am aligning with this church in their belief on baptism, on these things or whatever else. And so because it is a marker for our salvation, but church history wise, we also see it as a marker of membership and of alignment and of identity with a congregation and with this group of believers. And so we do see it in both of those regards or whatever else. And so I think that it's important to have that, but also to see a little bit of a distinction in that also. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you talk about this idea, the importance of it, and I'm not going to go into deep church history here, but there is an importance in the history of Baptist life. The earliest Baptists, known as Anabaptists, because they felt and saw an importance of believers' baptism. And it was coming out of the history of the church, the history of many infant baptisms, and we could go into some of the down the road of why that took place, and I think there was understanding of why that happened, but the Baptist belief kind of came out of this idea that says, no, we believe this has to be a believer before you take this step of faith biblically. And for them, it was so important that they held to that, even to the point where many of them were being persecuted and even killed for the idea of believers' baptism. So it's not just this flippant thing that we say is, this is what we believe and it's just what it is. for the earliest back in the life of Baptist history, it was so important that many people lost their lives for the sake of that belief and what they were doing.
And that Anabaptist, I was looking it up, trying to remember and make sure, but it actually literally means rebaptizer.
Yes.
So they had this other that had taken place because of church tradition and everything. But as they approached Scripture, they saw the importance of it being a marker after belief. And so they rebaptized. Adults were baptizing adults so that they could set this marker in place for all of that.
In the right order, yeah.
Yeah. We also, again, as we think about that, just trying to think about different topics around baptism. We talked about believers' baptism. I think the mode is important. We talk about the mode inside the life of Baptist churches because, again, different denominations do things differently. And so the mode for us is to go into water and to submerge or immerse. Yeah. But that baptism literally
by immersion.
Baptism by immersion, right? Not sprinkling. And the reason there again is because of the wording that we see biblically. We know that the word baptize was never translated. It was transliterated, meaning they brought the word from the Greek into the English and they created a new word. So if they had translated it, it would have been to dip or to immerse. And so that's why we follow the mode that we do. But I think when we do that, then we create a picture of what baptism is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this on Sunday mornings before, but to baptize by immersion, I think literally gives us a picture of what Christ has done for us. What we are setting in place when we look at Romans chapter 6 and we think about all that goes on in Acts chapter 6, we think about the picture of Christ's death, burial, and resurrection is Romans 6. Christ's death, burial, and resurrection that we then see a picture of as we come into the water, go under the water, and come back up. That idea of death, burial, and resurrection, of going under and coming up, is a great picture that we see and are reminded of through baptism. And so, again, we think about the believer's baptism. We think about the mode of baptism. We talked about babies and not.
Well, just to not leave that aspect of the topic in terms of immersion, that's the biblical model that we see demonstrated. Jesus, it says Jesus, when he was baptized, came up out of the water.
Yeah.
And so, and he presented himself to John the Baptist for baptism. John was like, hey, I don't even deserve to untie your sandals, much less baptize you. But Jesus says, no, you have to do this and in fulfillment of Scripture. And so, and then Paul and the eunuch, it says, as you already said, the eunuch says, hey, there's water. What doth hinder thee in the King James? And
that's the
and
one
so,
Jesus wrote.
Yeah, that's it. They went down into the water. And so we don't say this just as a knock against other denominations.
Right.
We practice what we practice because that's what we see practiced in the New Testament.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to make sure that we understood that.
So let me throw this in, posit this question, because I think it's been my experience in talking with people. A lot of times we say that this episode is us describing how us as Baptists believe what baptism should be, but we also say it is a symbol. It is not, as you said, even in your baptism messages, you always say that it is not a requirement for salvation, as you've said today. It is a symbol. So why is the symbol that important? And because I go back to what I started saying, it's been my experience in talking. There are a lot of people who will go to our church, any Baptist church, who are nervous to bring up the topic and never join the church. Maybe they'll be a part of a church for years and years and years, but they don't want to bring it up because they were sprinkled, or because they were baptized in a river, or they were, baptized in an infant or whatever. So what do you say to that person who comes with the question, well, if it's just a symbol, if I'm going to join, so let's play that out specifically. I am one of those things. And I come to you, Corey, Tiger, Jason, and I say, I love this church. I'd like to become a member, but why do I have to get rebaptized to do that?
Yeah, so I would say one is it is in line with what the church believes. And so if we love the church and we want to be involved in the church, it is bringing ourselves in line with that. It is an identity issue. But we are also generally very, very clear when that's the case. Okay, so one is let's have a conversation first.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, let's have a conversation about all of this. Let's not just assume anything or be afraid of things without having a conversation. And then usually, we are usually very able to make it clear that this is a different baptism. This is not about a new salvation in this person's life, but this is a baptism of identification and bringing in line with the church. And I've had this background that is different, that has some varying differences in it with belief. And so this identity through baptism is showing that I align with these things, I agree with these things, and in essence, I'm bringing my life in line with where this church is and what is going on. And so it is a little bit harder, and I understand that. But I think when one is, I think membership is important. I think we are supposed to be members of a church. I think that's what we see in Paul's writings when he talks about members and individual parts of the body. I believe he is literally painting a picture for us of church membership being important. And so if church membership is going to be important, it's not that it's really hard to say that membership is important if my membership is at a church which I haven't been at in 10 years or 3 years or whatever else. And so membership is important. And so I'm willing to show that it is important, and I'm willing to do these things in order to line up with where I believe God is bringing me for that membership. And so, but again, my biggest thing is let's talk. Let's talk through what this is and what this looks like and the whys of that. And that's the biggest thing is normally if we can have some conversations, we're able to find a way to be able to make that work and happen.
I would also add this is that we also don't devalue a previous experience, even if it wasn't in a Southern Baptist church, because you have people coming from non-denominational churches. But if they were baptized as a believer by immersion into that faith family, whatever they may be, then we allow people to unite in fellowship with us through statement of faith because they qualified. Now, if you're coming, I've known from some Methodist churches who offer believers baptism by immersion, and that's perfectly fine. If you've been baptized as a believer, and that was a meaningful it was a believer's baptism, wasn't when you were 6 months old, whatever it is, we can have a conversation about that, and you can join by statement of faith. So it's not that we're saying it's all about us, and if you don't do it our way, you can't be a part of us. That's not. People want to paint that picture, but that's not the thing. It is simply saying, at some point, as a believer, you united and you identified yourself as a disciple of Jesus Christ by being buried with him in baptism and raised to walk in the newness of life through the mode that we're talking about, and as a result of the things that have happened in through your life.
Yeah, two of the things that I often am telling kids or students or even adults for that matter is they're going into baptism that brings out the importance of baptism. One is accountability, that you're standing before a body of believers, and there's an act of expressing through baptism. You're telling a body of believers, I've made this decision. I'm asking you to now hold me accountable. I mean, that's part of membership of a church. And, and I think baptism is one of the steps in doing that. And then the other one is this mindset, and it's where we say it is a public profession of faith. And if you have been baptized, if you were baptized, infant baptism, whatever the case is, prior to making a decision, you have not done that. You have not said to a body of believers, I am publicly making the decision, saying that I've made this decision to follow Christ, because your baptism came prior to you doing that. So then that quote unquote baptism does not do that. It does not say to a body of believers, I have made this decision to follow Christ. And so that's where we talk about a lot of times, getting it in the right order. That you have, in order to tell someone through baptism that I've made a decision to follow Christ, you have to have made a decision to follow Christ. And so there's the order of that aspect, and it's that public way of professing and saying, this is what I have done. And I think, some of it too, I've talked with people, I think we've all talked with people who may have had baptisms that they thought they had made decisions to follow Christ. And later in life, they come around and determine through God's word, through God speaking to them, through prayer or whatnot, that they had not genuinely made a decision to follow Christ. Even there, we would still say, you need to follow your decision to follow Christ with baptism.
Right. It's getting it on the right side of that salvation.
Right side of salvation, right.
Yeah. And, again, to me, the big thing is don't be afraid to have conversations around this. Yeah. And so whether that is after a salvation or in the idea of membership, or we have a lot of kids when we do baptism. We have a lot of kids. I want to be baptized.
Yeah.
Well, then let's have a conversation. Let's not immediate. Sometimes the reaction can be, well, no, you don't want to be baptized. Because we don't think they're young enough to have made a decision, or we know they haven't made a decision yet. Well, it may be that is what sparks the chance to be able to have a conversation around. Well, baptism is more than just going into the water at church. That it is what follows a decision to accept Christ. Are you ready to do that? Let's create conversations around that, and that's good and healthy, and that's good for parents to be doing at home. It's good for us to be thinking about it as God is working and moving in our lives. Is He bringing us in line to join with Seymour First Baptist and to be a part of what's going on there? Those are all really, really good and healthy things for us to be thinking about on a regular basis.
To that point, about 3 years ago is when we kind of made the decision that in the life of our church, we're not going to do children's church. That we want children starting at a certain age to be involved and to be present in the life of worship with their families, with parents, and seeing what a lot of people would call big church. We've kind of removed that terminology, I think, for us. But one of the things that we've seen out of that is a lot of children and even adults for that matter, but especially when we made that decision, a lot of children seeing the act of baptism taking place and it sparking the conversation with a lot of these kids of, I need to get baptized, I want to get baptized. I've had a lot of conversations with kids. Initially, that starts with, I want to get baptized, either through an interest in baptism, oh, that looks fun, or whatever the case is. But those conversations has sparked those further conversations down the road to begin to have the conversation of salvation. But all of that speaks to, I think, one important part of what baptism is it is a witness.
Yeah.
Baptism is a witness to, this is what Christ has done in my life. And how much more when we see in the life of our church, when someone gets up there and is baptized and they're hearing what's being said, that this is because Christ has saved me from my sins and now I'm following through in obedience through believer's baptism, that now these kids and even adults are seeing what is taking place, and that in of itself, the witness of what is taking place through baptism, is beginning to work in the lives of others as God is doing the work in their life. And to me, I think that speaks also to what is the importance of baptism. It is an act of witness that this is what God has done in me.
Yeah.
And I want to now tell others who are here, if you've not made this decision, this is the best decision that I've ever made. It will be the best decision that you've ever made. And so I think that goes a lot for in the life of our church, what we have seen, that it has been an important part, even of the witness and the testimony to others who need to make that decision and follow in a decision to follow Christ.
Very good. Any other thoughts, comments, questions that we need to address?
I'm reminded in this of the episode of The Office
Oh no.
when Steve Carell has been told, he's broke and everything and he needs to declare bankruptcy. So he walks out and he just goes, I declare bankruptcy. Your baptism is public. I don't know.
But also saying you can't just declare it.
You can't just do it, right? Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, like it's yeah.
Very good. You got to follow it up.
That's what I'm here for. Y'all all have your theology degrees, and I have the office. That's what I bring to the table.
Oh my goodness.
If I were to wrap it up and end it, is
you mean that didn't end it? I'm just kidding.
Nearly ended it.
it's worth getting this right.
Yes. Agreed.
Yes.
So if that means having a conversation, making a decision, maybe it is right, and we can determine that through having a conversation together. Is be willing to do that, and we are willing to do that. We're willing to sit down with you. Any of us are glad to talk with you through that and help to think through that, pray through that, and work through that. And so I would just say, if there's something in this today that has sparked that in you, is follow it up soon. So send us an email, give us a call. Whatever it may be, let's have a conversation around that and see what God's got in store for you in your future.
Yeah, and basically, if there is an uneasiness in your spirit about it, if there is a question about it, then ask yourself, well, why?
Yeah.
Maybe that is just an indicator that you need to at least have a conversation about it, so that we can put that unrest and uneasiness to bed.
Yeah.
And possibly, that means I'm going to have to be baptized, or, that's going to settle, your spirit in such a way. But at least it is worth a conversation. I think we will leave it there. Thank you for tuning in once again to Seymour from the Front Pew. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns about this particular topic, if you have a topic that you would like to see us discuss and make an episode about, then send us an email and let us know what your thoughts are. We would appreciate that, and we so appreciate you making us a part of your day. And with that, we're going to say goodbye. So, goodbye, fellas.
See ya.
Bye.
Deuces.
Thank you for listening to Seymour from the Front Pew. Our sole desire for this podcast is to glorify God by educating and encouraging His body. If you would like to learn more about anything you've heard today, feel free to reach out by email at staff@seymourfbc.org or by visiting our website at seymourfbc.org. If you're located near our community and do not have a church home, come worship with us at 10:15 a.m. on Sunday morning. Until then, we pray God's richest blessings on you and yours as you love God, love others, make disciples, and live the life.